Welcome to Fraud Friday. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking loan fraud, bankers, public officials, and borrowers who got caught. Lance Sexton, Delaney Sexton, a lot of news. Hope you enjoyed your fourth. Let's go to it, Delaney.
All right, so we're talking about the Nick Patel and Trisha Patel fraud case here, and specifically we're going to focus on 5 red flags that the lenders missed on this $8 million loan fraud. So first off, the lack of online presence for this bank they created, Community First Mortgage, and its fictitious officer, Maya Greer.
Lance, my comment on that was, and by the way, Delaney, this is good stuff. My comment on that is, in the past, and you and I, with our gray hair, taught that character is the first C. You need to know who you're dealing with. In our online world, that doesn't necessarily know who you're dealing with all the time. But Lance, a 60-second Google search for any of these individuals would have turned up nothing. Ghosting.
Yeah, I think it's kind of concerning, Bob. Like you said, we've been in this business for a long time, and there was a time in lending where none of my customers had a website. None of my customers had an online presence. But especially in the last 2 or 3 years, my servicing team, we use Google search, whatever your search engine is, to try to verify the identity of a business or the identity of an individual. Now, I always say that not everything you see online is true. But if you see nothing online, that is a huge red flag, Bob.
Lance, what is it? And this is an open question for you. I don't know the stat, but what percentage of banking professionals have a LinkedIn profile? Lance, take a guess. What would you guess?
I'm going to say in the 90% range.
Delaney,
almost.
What do you Delaney, what do you think?
I might say a little bit lower than that, but I would say the vast majority does.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you, Bob, I have over 9,000 bankers as connections on LinkedIn. So
yeah,
there's a bunch.
And just because, and this is a red flag, definition of a red flag is to stop, assess what's going on. A lack of an online presence doesn't mean they're not there. It just means, hey, what's going on? What do you got for number 2, Delaney?
For number 2, it's the use of an unprofessional Yahoo email address by another fictitious entity involved. Now, this fictitious entity was signing the loan documentation on behalf of the business they use for this fraud, Precision Powered Products, Robert Engelmeyer.
Yeah, the problem with this one, Bob, is anybody can go out and create an email address in a matter of moments. And you know, just because it says communityfirstmortgage.com, you know, Jim at communityfirstmortgage.com doesn't necessarily mean it's good. But PPP really brought this up, Bob. You know, some of the email addresses that we saw on some of the fraudulent PPP loans were very interesting.
Lance, when I bought my house, someone said, "Oh, you got to call this guy. He's a great loan broker. He'll get you a great loan." His email was his name at it was Uber driver at Rocket email, whatever the Yahoo was .com. Not very professional and a red flag. The guy obviously wasn't a loan broker.
I'll add to this. It wasn't necessarily as obvious as, you know, a Yahoo email address, but the phone number associated with this individual was also a fake number. It was obtained through an app called Burner. So I think that would be probably another red flag that goes along with this.
Number 3.
Discrepancies in the loan documents were uncovered through Google Earth and title searches, revealing that the property claimed in the loan application was under different ownership and not associated with the business.
Yeah, it's hard for me to understand. I mean, I can understand getting to the point of an approval, Bob. I went back and forth. I can understand getting to a point of an approval, but getting to the point of closing without, I mean, they're going to want title insurance.
It's one thing, fine, don't do the Google Earth, but in this case, the title wasn't even close. I love this one. she sent an email. I would tell the story, Delaney. I guess she sent an email and said, "Hey, don't call me. I'll call you."
Well, hey, I mean, you covered it well. It's just this fake loan officer avoided having any type of conversation over the phone where you would be able to hear them, only email. And not only
Yeah.
that, these emails were sent back and forth between Nick and Trisha Patel. And so he was guiding her on what to say in the case of Maya Greer.
But you missed the important part. He was in jail.
He was. This was all through his jail email.
All right, this is the one I want to talk about, Lance, and I really want your take on this. I felt that this one was the most egregious, and the feds in their information, so it was a throwaway line. But I felt that the red flag was where the applicant, or in this case, the package gave an explanation which didn't make any sense, but sounded as though they were the smartest person in the world. And this is what Nick Patel told his wife to do. Quote, "Just copy and paste this. Attaches a list of equipment. It's all being purchased brand new. Please take a look at the list and let me know if you can get this done by the end of this weekend." This was a letter they were sending to a equipment appraiser who was legitimate to get an evaluation. Our goal is to have it Monday, so it's the last missing item due to the lender. So they're putting pressure on this appraiser. You want your $1,000 or $2,000 for the review, you got to get it done. Also, please let me know a ballpark at the estimated time you will spend on this so I know the cost. Okay, I'm willing to pay you. All the equipment is brand new. However, this is the key. The manufacturer is overseas, so they don't understand the concept of useful life. That, to me, just jumped off the page because, first of all, that's a nonsensical statement. But they're couching it. Well, they're overseas, so maybe that makes some sense. But hey, we're smart. We understand this stuff, and just because you're the idiot reading it doesn't, and they're putting you up that you're the person who doesn't understand it because Lance, I'm a really smart person. I deal with people overseas.
I I guess I'm stunned at this because normally when ordering an appraisal or a business valuation or an equipment valuation, the relationship with that third-party service provider is with the bank, not the borrower. And normally there would not be communication between the borrower and the appraiser, other than sometimes the appraiser might ask some questions. But the big thing that jumps out here, Bob, anytime they're pressing you to do something quicker than the normal time frame dictates, that's a problem. The other problem is saying an equipment manufacturer has no idea what the useful life of the equipment is.
Well, they're overseas, Lance. You obviously are not smart enough to know that. See, I'm smarter than you. I'm buying it from overseas, but the Europeans, they don't understand useful life like Americans do, and I'm the only one who knows that. So I'm going to tell you about that. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, they're trying to pressure the appraiser to do a quick appraisal based off a list. And not only that, him emphasizing that the equipment is brand new, is a red flag to me, which I would want to dig deeper into. But
well, if it's brand new, give me the invoice, right?
Yeah, the two things that jump out on this, Bob, is the pressure for time. Anytime a borrower is pressuring you in the due diligence process to do something immediately, it's a problem. They're trying to cover something up.
And if you don't understand it, don't assume that it's because the other person does and it's your lack of knowledge. If you don't understand it, you ask the dumb question. Well, Lance, how come European CPAs, and by the way, all the what is it? The Big Five. All the Big Five have accounting operations in Germany. How come they don't understand useful life like we do in the United States? Ask that question, and you're not going to get an answer because it's made up. And again, he's putting himself in a situation. I'm smarter than you. I deal overseas. You don't. Therefore, you don't know what you're doing, and just do what I say.
Yeah, it's like I said, the get it done right now. Here's all we have, and the people that are selling it to me don't know anything about it. Those are all big red flags to me.
They're huge red flags. Anyway, we're going to be following this story more, but The bottom line is the USDA has egg on their face. They issued a guarantee number. Hanover Securities bought it. They bought it on the good faith that that number was legitimate. I'm sure after the previous frauds, they contacted USDA and they said, yeah, that's a legitimate number. But to get this approved through a lender, they made up the lender and then they got it done. The other thing also that was amazing on this, Lance, is they did it in Puerto Rico. And they're implying, well, things in Puerto Rico are different than the rest of the United States. Again, things overseas. No, they're not. Puerto Rico, Lance, I've been to Puerto Rico. Guess what? They're U.S. citizens. They have these things called passports. They're Americans.
Yeah. Well, this all jumps out as problematic in terms of like I said earlier, anytime somebody's pressuring you to do something quicker than normal in the due diligence process, it's a problem.
Absolutely. What else you got for us, Delaney?
All right, now I've got a few stories with the inescapable PPP and EIDL programs. Shambo Washington recently was found guilty of 31 counts of fraud, including wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, and false claims offenses. And so initially she applied for 2 EIDLs and received those, and then she got 2 PPP loans from JP Morgan Chase. Those all amounted to about $500,000. And she used 2 different businesses, one of which, Tiny Toes and Tiaras, was an online luxury baby boutique. I have not heard of luxury baby boutiques before, but I guess I don't have kids, so I wouldn't know. And on these loans, she lied about her business, the number of employees, wages, revenues, costs of operation, and instead of using the money for business expenses, she purchased a car. Bob, I hate to inform you, I don't know what kind of car.
Delaney, you and I are going to have a talk. You know that. We need to.
I know.
Fraud 101. I need to know what the car is. Go ahead.
I can tell you she purchased a custom-built home.
Fair enough.
It's pretty cool. Not done the right way, but cool. She also paid for elective surgery and credit card debt, other bills, but it didn't quite end there. She also applied for millions in additional loans, grants, and tax credits, including advanced tax credits through the IRS and a $6 million grant through the SBA Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. I'm kind of curious what the second business was in order for her to have been able to get a grant from that program, but...
Well, she didn't get it, so she applied for it. And Lance, I read these stories and shake my head. I always go back to your comment that you repeat over and over, which is if these people had spent as much time working the business than they were on these frauds, they would be successful.
Well, the thing that jumps out dramatically about this story to me, guys, is what do? They get a fraudulent EIDL loan, and then they're like, oh, well, what about the employee tax credits? What about the shuttered venue operator? I mean, they get one, and then this person obviously stacks several pandemic relief programs on top of each other. And so, I wonder, I'd love to know, guys, did they start out just wanting to do one, and it was so easy that they're like, oh, well, I'll do another. And
she went to the well 4 times on this.
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing about this. I mean, she used several programs, EIDL, PPP, the tax credit program, the shuttered venue program. I'm just surprised she didn't get a restaurant revitalization grant as well.
Of course, she would get caught either way, but you think when you start applying to more programs and for more loans, you're just setting yourself up to get caught much quicker.
Well, that's the other thing, Delaney, you bring up an amazing point that needs to be thought about. Why do these various programs not communicate with one another and cross-reference? Like you've got an applicant getting an EIDL loan. Why would PPP not get, PPP or the shuttered venue program or the tax credit program not get that information from other agencies to avoid people stacking these up the way they did?
It goes back to well, first of all, I agree with you because shuttered venue in the restaurant, that took a long time to roll out. So in that case, I think your criticism is fair because they had well over a year to cross-check that and do that. And I agree with you, Lance. I mean, at the beginning,
it was fast and furious. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not as critical in the initial draw. It was a one-off, and she got caught. Fine, but she just went back to the well. Last one, Delaney.
All right, we have Lpoino, who pled.
Oh, there's the car. There's the car. Good job.
I do have a car this time.
All right, all right.
They pled guilty to 1 count of bank fraud, conspiracy, bank fraud, 2 counts of wire fraud, and 2 counts of aggravated identity theft. Now, she was originally charged in December 2019. I'm assuming for the tax preparation company, and then was indicted in 2021. And during that time, they fled and was a fugitive for 19 months in Panama before they were returned to the United States. But at this business, specifically for tax returns for 2019, they were using stolen identities, names, and social security numbers of victims. These tax returns reported false information about wages, employers, dependents, etc. And to conceal this, she actually claimed that they had been prepared by 2 former employees of her tax preparation company. And then once those returns came in, she ended up using that money to then apply or obtain refund advance loans, and then cash those loan checks using false identification documents. And again, as we seem to see, some of these fraudsters, they never stop there. She ended up applying for $2.1 million in COVID idle loans. And this is where I get some cars. A 2020 Cadillac for $86,000. Almost $400,000 was wired to a jewelry business in the Dominican Republic. And they didn't tell us how all the other, I guess $1.5 million were used, but.
This story, guys, reminds me of something. As bankers, and I just think about throughout my career, Bob, and I don't know how you feel. We didn't have to think about fraud very much in the 90s so much, but fraud's a part of our life now as lenders. And we have to be prepared to look for signs of fraud and to be prepared to identify it. It affects everybody. Guys, just this morning myself, I got a text message from my bank, and somebody was trying to use my debit card in Spain. And I have no idea. Now,
are you calling from Spain?
Well, that's exactly that was the question the bank asked me. They're like, Mr. Sexton, are you in Spain? I'm like, no.
No.
I'm like, Clarksville, Arkansas is not nearly as nice as going to Spain, but I guess the purpose of my story is fraud affects us all daily. But as participant lenders, we really need to be prepared to look at, identify. We did a webinar not too long ago on fraud, Bob. And it was a great webinar, but as lenders, we need to be prepared. This is a part of our life, and we need to be able to find it and stop it.
Thank you for joining us today for Fraud Friday, so you can stop criminals from stealing from your bank.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.